Good day. This is Chuck Cameron sitting in a wonderful place, Red Knapp's Restaurant in Oxford, the American Grill, sitting with Brett Knapp. Brett, thank you for making time to talk to me today.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Yep, it's a pleasure to get a chance to talk to you for a little while.
My wife and I, Terry, we enjoy coming here and we enjoy your food. She's a fan of your hamburgers. So.
Well, I'm a fan of hers. She's, my son helped out at OCTV for 2 or 3 times. I don't know if he helped out, that's probably not the right word, but he had an opportunity to go learn a few things down there. So that was great of you.
OCTV is a great spot. So we are here. We thank you for watching. We hope you're going to learn some things you might not know about Brett, about Knapp's, about life. And we always start with this. I love the trucks going by.
That did come by.
We always start with this. Our goal is to figure out the kind of influences, the people influences that have helped you get to be the man you are today. We know this guy in the restaurant. You're very friendly. This is like a Cheers place. It's a place where you know people. Tell us about where you grew up.
I grew up in Rochester.
Okay.
Yeah, I grew up in Rochester, and my family has been in the restaurant business for, going back to my grandfather, who is red.
Yep.
So his name was Lyle, but he had red hair, evidently, when he was younger, and they called him Red. So he was in the restaurant business. His brother had a restaurant across the street where Cruise and Mirror is now in Rochester. And my dad and my uncle were both in the restaurant business. And my cousin was in the restaurant business. So I came out and, my grandfather tried to talk my dad out of being in the restaurant business to do something else. My dad tried the same thing with me. He said, there's probably easier ways to earn a living. But, I ended up in it. And so I didn't listen, no.
What was it like at home? In your house, what was Dad like? What was Mom like? And what did you learn from the two of them?
Oh, they were both good. My parents were divorced, and I lived with my mom, although I did stay with my dad some. But they were good parents. I had a really good upbringing. My grandfather had 13 acres off of Tinkin Road.
Ooh, nice.
And my mom and I lived in a subdivision that the house actually backed up right onto the property. So there was horses and goats, and we had down there, but they'd come right back up to our fence. So I had the neighborhood in front and the farm behind. And my grandfather spent a lot of time at that farm, so I spent a lot of time. We were down there. The whole neighborhood would come down. Not just me. The whole neighborhood would come down. So we had a pretty tight knit group, and of course he was always down there, working and helping us build a fort or whatever projects we were doing. We did more playing than projects, but.
Most kids do.
Yeah, but we did a few things, and he made it fun. But I had some good parents, good role models. It was a pretty I guess average childhood.
Got it. But. Describe Dad.
Dad, he was just here. He just came in with his friend. He just left. He was mayor of Rochester. He's always been real involved in the development of Rochester. Was always concerned about the downtown, and so he's been, he's on the DDA now. He's 84 years old and still, trying to help. So he's always been a good role model, as seeing, something needs to be done, you just get in there and do it. If you think something needs to be changed, you need to change it, as opposed to just waiting for it to happen. So, I'd say that he's been a good influence there.
How about Mom? What can you say you learned from Mom?
Mom, I learned, patience. She's a very kind woman, extremely nice. I just learned, my wife always says she thinks I kind of lucked out because I got, just enough of my mom and just enough of my dad. I don't know what exactly I learned from her, but she was a great mother growing up. She came from Tennessee. They were very poor. Her dad was a sharecropper. And, she came up to Rochester when she was young, and they met. And so she comes from very humble beginnings. So even today, my cousin's in the landscape business, and he'll come give her mulch, so she'll get new mulch. I mean, you'd think that, she'll talk about that for 3 months. Like, she never thought she could, have mulch like that, and she appreciates, that's what I can say. I mean, she appreciates everything. Just the littlest things she has an appreciation for. So and I try to relay that, to my kids.
If they have someone like that around who can really demonstrate gratitude for about everything, it might temper the fact that most people are quicker to find what's wrong than what's right these days.
Yeah. Yeah, very, very true.
Excellent. Well, you mentioned kids. Let's talk about your kids.
I have a 17-year-old. Her name's Liliana. She's supposed to be coming up here to see me today at some point. She's off school. She had a half day. She is at Lutheran High Northwest. She's into cheerleading, and she's a real good student. She's going to Saginaw Valley next year, and she's going to dance. She's already knows her roommates. One of her roommates, they actually met here. She worked for me for a little bit. So they became fast friends, and so she's going on to do that. And I have a son, Lido, who he's 14, and he is at St. John in Rochester, and he'll be going to Lutheran High Northwest next year. Okay. He just got back from Washington, D.C. on his 8th grade trip, so he was able to, he wrote a paper, and they took the first, second, third, I think, maybe the first top 4 people, and submitted the papers to see who got first, second, third, fourth, and whoever did got to be part of the ceremony at laying the wreath at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. So he was, I think he was number 2, so he was able to do that, and that was great seeing him walking out there with with all of that history. And
it's something special.
Yeah, it really was. Yeah, but he's in track season now. He worked for me for a little bit, then basketball season stayed, bussing tables. He worked for me for a little bit, and now we're in track. So he's doing that and doing well.
So when looking back to when you were the age of your kids, did you have interest or hobbies, things that you really enjoyed doing?
When I was their age, it was, kind of like kids, every other kid, I just doing everything outside. It was, like I said, we had the farm, so it's just constantly down there, but we had a basketball court. So basketball was a huge thing. We ended up getting, we kind of skipped over the horses after a while because we were introduced to motorcycles, dirt bikes. Yep. So when I grew up, there was no subdivisions behind us. It was Park Davis and Protocon, and you could just ride everywhere. So that we started riding motorcycles back then. So we were doing a lot of that. Yeah, sure. Yeah. So yeah, just that kind of stuff. Not real studious. I probably wasn't the greatest student, but we had a lot of fun.
It sounds like you had a good childhood.
I had a great childhood.
Excellent.
Yeah, great parents. Great, like I said, my grandfather was a big influence, and
beautiful.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're going to take a break. When we get back, we're going to talk a little bit more about the next phase. You become a young adult. Where'd you go? What'd you do? Why'd you do it? And we're slowly sneaking toward what you're up to today. But first, we'll take a little break. Stay with me. Stay with us. Well, we're back. Okay, so I'm terribly jealous that you had basically a farm behind your house. I think that would be such fun growing up as a kid.
It was.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
But yeah, I still run into some of the kids that grew up in that sub, and everybody feels the same way. Like, boy, couldn't have grown up any better.
Absolutely. Let's talk about once you get through high school, what'd you do next?
I went to Michigan State.
Okay, what'd you study?
General business.
Yep.
Because I didn't know what I wanted to do.
Yep.
And, I always thought that I would probably do something in the restaurant. I mean, nothing really came to mind. I never had a, I have friends that knew immediately, what they were going to do and jumped into majors and have done very well. And I just didn't know. I was kind of, I wouldn't say floundering because I was in school, but I just, I didn't know. And I thought, and then at some point I'm like, yeah, I'll just talk to my dad because, I was, in my early 20s with no money. So I certainly needed, if I was going to get in the restaurant business, I was going to need him to help. So, and then, so I graduated. I worked at a couple restaurants. I worked at the Alibi for a while. Worked at a place called Satellite Grill, trying to get some experience, out there. I worked for my dad some, washing dishes when I was younger, early on. But he always wanted me to kind of work for somebody else, just kind of what I did with my kids. I mean, they did, but, just to get a different perspective on how people do things. And
Do you think that helped you to make good decisions if you had somebody else's view of how to do the job, restaurants?
Yeah. I think when, I don't know everything about the restaurant business, and so there's a lot of great places out there that that have multiple restaurants and just doing things different than I'm doing, and I just think it's good to get out and experience some of that and gain some of that knowledge. So yeah.
You said something earlier that tickled me. You said that your grandpa, if I got that right, the
Yes.
famous Red Knapps, kind of advised your dad to not go into this business.
Right.
And your dad sort of advised you not to go into this business.
Right.
Why do you think that they attempted to steer their sons away from the chaos?
I don't, they always, well, I can only tell you what I'm thinking because, I don't really remember the in-depth conversations about it. I just remember thinking, are you sure? It's a hard business. And I, if you want to work weekends and you want to work nights, you want to work all the holidays. The restaurant business is that's it.
It's just perfect.
Yeah. And so, when I was single, it wasn't, it was a little easier. And because, I didn't, holidays, weekends, it didn't really matter. And then once you have a family, there's travel, you go, places with your kids, you want to do stuff with your wife. Easter, we have a big buffet here, and so everybody comes up here, I can only say that, I've told them, if you want to work Monday through Friday, and the restaurant business isn't for you, and it is hard. It's kind of a stressful business. I think that's what my dad probably, he probably saw some friends that were manufacturers making millions and millions of dollars and think, well, why don't you try that? And my grandfather might have, I wasn't privy to that conversation, but my dad told me that he had tried to, get him to do something else. So it's, and I'm not complaining. It's extremely rewarding. I really enjoy the restaurant business, but there's, there probably is easier paths, less.
I'm sure there are.
It's very labor intense. And things, it gets, when you're like on a Friday night, nobody's here, and then, 20 minutes later, you got a full restaurant, you got to get it all out, and so it can be stressful. And so anyway, I think that's, why everybody's kind of, nobody was trying to talk anybody out of it. I think it was more like, are you sure? Like there's, other things out there maybe you should look at. And
sounds like that was wise counsel, just to make sure that you're thinking about it.
Yeah. Just nobody took the advice.
Of course not. Of course. I don't think we tend to. You mentioned that you've gone from being single now to being the married guy. Who'd you marry? How'd you meet? And tell us about your bride.
Her name's Jennifer, and we met here. She used to work for me.
Really? Excellent.
Yeah, we've been married for 18 years,
Got it.
and we got married. She stopped working. We had 2 kids, and she was a stay-at-home mom for, I didn't look. Well, I guess it was right before COVID. And then when COVID hit, that anybody in the restaurant business know that was a nightmare. And when she was here, she was she actually managed over in Clarkston. She was a good employee. I mean, she knew what she was doing. So, she volunteered at the school. She was really, involved in my kids' lives. And when COVID hit, we lost people. There was no manual.
Yep.
People think like, we've got some instruction, like, okay, these are the rules. There was none of that. I was learning from the news just like everybody else, and I'd call the health department, I'd call the Michigan Restaurant Association. There was no answer. So I needed help. And when we were just carry out, we kind of had to reinvent ourselves. So I needed her up here. And we did have some really good people that stuck with us, extremely good people that I'm very grateful for that are still here. But so anyway, she went from being a stay-at-home mom for probably a dozen years to working. Now she's still working here a day and a half a week, 2 days a week. She got the bug again, so she likes being up here a little bit. But
Got it. What has being married taught you?
What has being married taught me? Well, I think I'm a better person for being married. I'm not sure what it taught me. I'm certainly a different person than I was, before we got married.
How so?
And then kids, kind of slowly. Well, I was probably a little more wild than I probably should have been. And so,
You're the first person I've ever talked to who said that. This is the very first.
Right. Yeah. There was. Yeah. It was fine being single. But probably, it just it calmed me down. Not calm me down. I don't know the word I'm looking for, but it's just. It's been a great marriage, just going from single to being married and embracing it, and and then having kids. And I lived upstairs here for 11 years, and then we got married, and it was still great. It was great, but just being up there, and then my daughter was born. Well, it was a loft, so I put a bedroom on, but it kind of blocked up the loft. And then my son was born. I said, we need a house. We need to get out of here. So anyway, that's we bought I wanted to live anywhere between Oxford and Rochester, this side of Rochester. I didn't want to live like on Avon, as far. I didn't want to have to go through Rochester to get here.
Yes.
And we put in offers. We could have been here. We could have been Lake Orion. We looked everywhere here in between. Then we finally got one in Rochester Hills. So,
Got it.
But marriage has been good. The kids have been good.
Excellent.
Very happy.
Excellent. Well, when I come and see you here, we're here a lot.
Yeah.
It's always a joy to see you because you seem to have a way with your staff and with the people that come in that we feel comfortable. You make people feel like we're kind of home. It's welcome to my place.
I've been very lucky. I've got some staff here that's been with me for my office manager. Her name is Beth, and she actually started working here before we opened. She started doing the books I think 2 months before we opened the doors, and she's been here for 28 years. She's more like a sister. We're very close, and I can't say enough about her. She's, I tell other people that I've had business dealings with, and I'll get Beth together with them, and I'll say, she's real good. She's, she'll have everything ready, and then when they get done with her, they're like, boy, she is good.
Two thumbs up.
My chef has been with me 21 years.
Excellent.
Does a great job, and I can't say enough about him. And then we have wait staff that've been here for years and years and years.
Yep.
And so I'm very thankful That, we've never had a lot of turnover. Even when we opened, the wait staff, I mean, it seemed like everybody stayed here for about 11 years.
That's amazing. Yeah.
And then some girls started having babies, and then I lost some, but I was like, geez, this is how it is. Nobody ever is going to leave. That's great. So it helps you with consistency if you don't have turnover. Because I've worked in restaurants before here, and I mean, it's just a different philosophy. I've worked in extremely successful restaurants that you have a lot of turnover, and they make it work. It's just not by nature. I kind of like, the consistency of the same people.
With this place and you seem to work well together.
Yeah.
We're going to take a little break. When we get back, stay with us. We're going to figure out a little bit more about what you've been up to a little more recently and maybe what you're looking at in the future. Till then, stay tuned. We'll see you in a minute. Well, thanks for coming back. We hope you had a nice break. We had a nice break.
We did.
And let's get a little closer to today. The last 5 or 10 years, what have you been up to in your personal life, and what have you been up to in your business life, and maybe how those things interact, because I suspect with you especially they do.
A couple of years, you asked about the last 5 years. I mean, a couple of those years were hard. I mean, it was 7 days a week. My kids went to my wife's mother quite a bit because we were just trying to hold on. But since then, it's obviously gotten a little more normal. It's still not back to total normal, but we're it's a lot better than it was, and business has been good. Just like I said, back to normal, and we have a patio. We're getting ready to. Yeah. Well, it's open now, but hopefully we get the weather to support that.
One of our favorite places to eat. If you all haven't been to the patio, you got to see the patio. It's a great place to have a wonderful meal outside in the summertime.
Yeah, and then personal life, just watching my kids grow up.
Yep.
My wife and I watching the kids getting, she's graduating from high school this year, and I just can't believe it's going so fast. It just seemed like yesterday when we were living upstairs, I'd bring her down, we'd set up, and she'd have the little seat, and I'd set her in it, and she'd watch everybody set up for 45 minutes. And,
yep. As you're talking, I'm looking at a picture of you and your wife and 2 cute little kids, and they've grown some since then.
Since then, he's taller than me now.
Is he really?
So and then they look a little bit different.
Yep.
Yeah, that was in Hawaii there.
Yep, it's a good place to get a picture.
It was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in addition to making hamburgers and juggling everything, do you have a life? Do you guys have fun? What do you do other than work?
Well, other than work, life is kind of busy right now. Fun is now watching my daughter cheerlead.
Yep.
My son had a track meet yesterday. Mm-hmm. So that's, he has a track meet on Saturday. So, I think I look forward to it more than he does. I'm excited, so that's, we don't, like I said, you kind of work nights and weekends. My daughter is working Knapp's Dairy Bar in Rochester. Mm-hmm. My dad still owns the building, but for the first time in 70 years, it's not owned by somebody in the family.
Yeah.
But my daughter works down there.
Good.
So anyway, she's
that would be 4 generations.
We got the 4th generation in there. Yeah. And so she's got a schedule like for the restaurant business. I mean, she's part-time, but she works 2-3 days a week, and with school and that. So it's life right now is a lot of I'm here, and then
juggling.
We all come back together and do stuff. But there's there's always somebody that's doing, doing something. But we're all having fun.
That's good.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Oxford for a minute. You are a staple here now, at least from my perspective, having been here 20 years. Talk about the town. How does Knapp's American Grill fit into the Oxford organization and framework and ebb and flow, and how does the town connect to you and the leadership?
Well, the town, Oxford's always been great. It seems like it was meant to be.
Okay.
I mean, we've always felt, like part of the community, right off the bat. I mean, everybody was there wasn't a lot of restaurants up here.
Yeah.
And, my dad helped me get this thing go, he helped, I had to borrow the money and helped me get this thing going. And he was, the town was always real, just receptive to
Good.
what we were doing here. And when we first got here, some of these storefronts out here had garage doors on them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was, there's some bars but not really any restaurants, and not a whole lot. There was some store. There was a few stores. The Ace Hardware used to be downtown, but there was a lot of vacant buildings. There was a lot of vacant buildings, and just watching the town fill up, with some nice stores.
That's gotta feel
it's a
good.
big difference. When we first got here, the parking lot was dirt. It was dirt in the back.
Mm-hmm.
So, not right now. I'd say right now, I think between the village and the DDA, I mean, it's probably as good as I've seen it. Like I said, the town's always been great. I lived in, I used to live over in Oxford Lakes before I moved upstairs. So it's home.
What would you, if you look ahead, how old are you now?
55.
Okay, so you're a youngster to me.
Right.
Look ahead a decade. What do you see for Brett? What do you see for Oxford? Just, if you're king, what do you see?
Well, I don't think that far ahead.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I know some of my friends, they're approaching retirement. My smart ones are retired. They did something that was able to afford them to retire, but never been that person where I said, in 5 years, I'm going to sit on a beach and, we got the restaurant here, and, my dad's 84 and he's still working, doing stuff. So I kind of see myself as kind of probably doing the same thing. I mean, he doesn't work, a day, like in a day-to-day job, but he's got interests around and he's still doing that. So I don't know. I don't see myself doing a whole lot. It might not, my life might not change. My kids will be older, they'll be gone and off, but I don't know that my life is going to change a whole lot.
Yep. Well, on behalf of just me, I'm mighty grateful that you're in town.
Well, thank you.
You have always made us feel welcome. I'm sure a lot of people would welcome that. I encourage them to come out to your little lot with your patio out in the back, enjoy a summer meal.
I hope we get some people out there.
Yep, it's a good thing to do.
Yeah.
Love the sound effects here.
Right, we're right on 24. When I lived upstairs, our bedroom was right on the street. So
You can hear the gravel trains
5 in
rumbling
the morning.
by. Yes. Right. So, well, Brett, I want to thank you for taking time. You make this town a more welcoming place to be, and I appreciate the work that you put into that, and all the people in your lives who have helped you become the man you are. So thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Pleasure. So that's Chuck Cameron and Brett Knapp sitting here in a wonderful place, hoping that you'll stop by here, because maybe we can talk about your life someday. Until then, have a good day.